Eagles destroy the Bengals. Seahawks and the Raiders tie up. And the Ravens destroy the Colts. Guys, this is preseason week 1. Here's your recap. Let's talk sports. I mean, Lord mighty, guys. It is week 1 of preseason. It is officially kicked off. I mean, it is just such an exciting time to be, watching the preseason of the NFL. And we had 3 games today that were just absolutely interesting to watch, guys. Now, going into these games, guys, you never can have too big expectations when it comes to preseason games. Especially preseason opener games. These games, they're going to have flags. They're going to have, issues. We're going to be trying out new stuff. There's going to be, even the fucking commentators are going to be messing up while they're fucking talking about the preseason. Alright, guys. Even, when I was watching the final game, which just ended just a little bit ago. Guys, when I watched that final game, they have this new thing where now they're doing, first downs. They're measuring them digitally. And, you're like, oh, first time we're really going to see the measuring for the digital stuff to come out today. And then they're like, oh, then there's an issue, we can't actually get the digital stuff out, we're actually just going to have to rely on the refs again. So, hopefully they'll have that digital thing worked out so there's no issues, going in the future. But there was an issue with that, guys. And also, too, there was something going on here, too. So we had Anthony Richardson starting for us, the QB battle. And, having Anthony Richardson thinking this man's going to be fucking crazy, going to be going insane. I mean, there was a couple of passes. But there was, mostly some sacks. There was mostly some, running away from defenders and getting fucking trampled on from Anthony Richardson. So that was definitely something. So seeing the Dylan Moore QB battle in the room right now to see who the Colts are going to be goddamn taking, it's definitely interesting to see. In my opinion, guys, Anthony Richardson is not the quarterback you want in your team because this guy is just going to fucking, shit himself. And that's the problem sometimes with the NFL quarterbacks, You got a quarterback that has a really good arm that can throw a couple of big, deep balls, but then he shits himself when he's playing against, the Browns, or he's playing against the fucking, the goddamn Seahawks, You're just like, goddamn, why are you just fucking shitting yourself all the goddamn time? It makes no sense. And so, Anthony Richardson did not play this game for that long because this man got injured. So that's definitely, it sucks to see Anthony Richardson getting injured. You don't wish that on anybody, guys. I mean, let's just, have some common decency here. But you also look at Anthony Richardson and you go, wow, you really came on this opener preseason game ready to show something. And, did not prove a fucking single thing. I mean, the only thing Anthony Richardson proved today was that you need to take this man off the goddamn field because holy shit. Now, we're going to get into all the games. We're going to talk about them individually, of course. I'm just going over some moments that I'm seeing today. And, one of the things that I saw today, too, guys, on this game, when we talked about the Ravens against the Colts, the Ravens is like third string. These guys is like third string, second string players were just on point today. The intensity from the defense, even from these guys that, might not be, full, star on NFL players, they might just be backups, but these backups were absolutely running through, shredding this Colts offense over and over and over again. So I'm loving the intensity that the Ravens were playing today. It just shows that these guys are always ready. And it also shows, too, if anything happened, to this defense, if any players, got injured, sadly. To be able to put one of these guys, slot one of these guys in as your backup, I think just, gives you so much more faith. The way these guys were playing, the intensity was just absolutely insane. And then the other side of the ball for the Colts, the offensive line was not holding up at all. I mean, the way this defense was just getting at the ball, it was just fucking, embarrassing to look at. I mean, Anthony Richardson was fucking running for his goddamn life. Any quarterback behind that Colts offensive line is running for their goddamn life. Running back is not able to do a goddamn thing. I mean, it is just... it is just pitiful, looking at what the fucking Colts are trying to do. And I even said it, for my predictions. I said, guys, I just don't think, even, if you have the Colts, and the Colts are already an football team already, and then you're trying to rely on the Colts' second and third string players. Oh man, we are just in for a goddamn disaster. I mean, holy shit, and we definitely were in. There was a couple of plays in that game, but I mean, overall, it is just like, what am I even looking at? Holy shit. And now, there is some moments that I do have to talk about with the other game. The other game that happened at 6:30, which was the Bengals, and we had the Eagles. Joe Burrow, all training camp has been talking about, the Bengals need to get on a good start. These guys need to go fucking crazy. Need to, really do something. And, when you really think about it, guys, I really like how, I do like the aggression of, the coaching. Saying, hey, even, with these preseason games, they might not matter too much. We're going to put some matter into it. We're going to, we've always started off with a bad start. And sadly, with the ending score of this game, that bad start is, it's only continuing. So that's definitely something to say. And also, too, guys, the Bengals defense is something that I think really needs to be talked about on these, games today. This second string, third string defense was just abysmal. No intensity, no able to get at the line, just letting the Eagles kind of do whatever they want. The coverage just wasn't fucking there. I mean, it was just like, holy shit, y'all are just like playing like this is like college football. I mean, like, what is even happening? So that's definitely something to really look at today, is that, you have these 3 games. And I would say for season openers, if I'm going to pick a game that was one of the best games to watch today, I would definitely say the Bengals and the Eagles game was definitely one of the best. It was a high-scoring game from both sides of the ball, and then it had the intensity of a really good football game. The commentators for the Raiders and the Seahawks game kept, saying this game was, like, really fucking good. And, it got good at the third quarter, but the first and second quarter, it was just a Seahawks massacre. And we'll get into it with the last game. We'll talk about, the Raiders' fucking performance. But it wasn't, anything to really ride home about. I mean, holy shit. At least the Raiders tied it up. Thank fucking God. I was really sad that the Raiders were maybe going to stay at 3. I was thinking, were they even going to score a touchdown? And then that second half, well, the third quarter they pick it up and they actually, really scored. There was some field goals, to set up this, tying the thing up. But, I'm just saying this, I just really feel like, commentators today saying this game was a really good football game, or just, play online. I mean, saying this wasn't like a preseason game. I think the Seahawks were, keeping it the preseason vibes going strong. I mean, Seahawks were full on preseason. I mean, it was honestly only the Raiders that were, I was thinking, were these guys going to really show out for a really good start? And to really show that, hey, we're fucking, we're about to, show something this year. We're about to win a couple more games than the other Raiders teams in the past a few years. So that's definitely something to say. Now, guys, I really would say that if you wanted to watch a good preseason game, pick the Eagles and the Bengals, rewatch that game, because that game was actually really fun to watch. But these other games, oh my God, it was definitely something. So, guys, let's get to talking about these fucking games. I think I've yapped long enough about the overall thoughts here, how I'm feeling about this whole, action night of week 1 of football, guys. But let's start off first talking about one of the first teams that happened today. We had the Indianapolis Colts versus the Baltimore Ravens. And this battle was just something to see, guys. I mean, holy shit. Already starting off the first quarter already with this whole entire game, there was already an interception. Now, before we get into talking about the teams, how do the two teams stack up? Starting off with the Colts, guys. For quarterback, we're going to be having Anthony Richardson. He was expected to start on the first quarter. Did he play really good? No, he did not play good at all. Running back, we had DJ Giddens, which DJ Giddens, I would say, actually had some really great runs, in my opinion. I liked what they did on here. It just overall was definitely the vibes. I definitely liked what, the running back was doing. And I would say, too, guys, you had a thing. Now, you have all of this for, the Colts. And Anthony Richardson battling for, the quarterback spot from, which I will be real, guys, when you have a quarterback battle with Anthony Richardson and a quarterback competition battle with Daniel Jones, it's just like, holy shit, what are we fucking doing here? But I really liked, the vibes of let's get Anthony Richardson out here, let's see what he can do. But did he do anything? He did not do anything. And then, the Baltimore Ravens, they just kind of had their second, third string players. But the running back from the Baltimore Ravens today was, one of the big highlights, in my opinion. This guy was getting touchdowns. This guy was going absolutely insane, in my opinion. Just going crazy on the ball. You had the running back Mitchell on the Ravens just, absolutely fucking going insane. Just providing so much great value, in my opinion, when you're really, thinking about it, guys. I really enjoy what he did here. Just to be able to just get easy first downs. He was even doing explosive-ass runs, even doing these crazy-ass runs into touchdowns. It was just beautiful to see. And I already see that, an interception happens and the Ravens get the ball. And then, I really like how, then there's a field goal. You get a field goal from the Colts. And then you get a touchdown from the Ravens finally. You get some punts going, some touchdowns, another field goal. And it just feels like, Ravens, did an interception in the first quarter, then they did an interception again. It's just like, what the fuck is even going on here? Definitely that preseason vibes. But I would say overall, our final score today on this game was 16-24. I really liked what the Ravens did. The Colts today were fucking ass. I mean, I'd rather, I don't know, put a gun to my head than, ever put my faith into Anthony Richardson. But here we are putting our faith into him. And I would say, for the Ravens, second or third string kind of team, I would say these guys are pretty stacked up. I think if you really wanted a team that, if you didn't have Lamar Jackson or you didn't have, these other players, these other players could definitely step up and win a few more games. So I really do like how these guys really proved themselves today. I would say overall for the Ravens' performance today, how the players stack up, which we'll go over. Now let's move on and let's go over the offensive side performance today. Offensive side for the Ravens. I want to talk about the Ravens first because the Ravens really did do good today. They had that one play where they, immediately threw an interception. But other than that, they were the ones actually scoring points. You had K. Mitchell here that was just going absolutely insane, providing so much great value, in my opinion. I really liked how he was getting to the line. I really liked, too, how the offensive line from the Ravens was really holding those runs together. Not letting the Colts defense get in, not letting, them slip by and really get that running back. Just creating really easy holes for K. Mitchell to really do his goddamn thing, which was just so great to see, in my opinion, and it makes me, makes more great faith. Gives me more faith, too, for more Raven preseason games if if K. Mitchell's going to be on playing again, it's just like, holy shit. And honestly, too, guys, even the quarterback, even he was doing pretty good, too. The way this man was, making some really nice passes, too, some pretty long passes, in my opinion. There was moments where they were kind of just shredding up the Colts with the pass game, with the run game, just providing so much great value there. It was just beautiful to see. And then, defensive side of the Ravens, let's just get into that right now. Defensive side, I'm really enjoying what the Ravens did on the defense. The intensity of the defense was just amazing to see. I really like how the way they got to the line. They really, they were sacking the fucking quarterback. They were, stopping the run game. And it was just beautiful to see because that's how the Ravens always are. When the Ravens are actually fully unlocked, when they're actually ready to actually, show some really great football, they stop the run game. They're going to sack those fucking quarterbacks. They are going to get to the line at a really great pace. It was just really good to see. I love the intensity the Ravens defense was playing at. One of the main highlights, in my opinion, was this defensive, line from the Ravens. It was just really great to see. I love how easily they were breaking in, just, kind of, killing those fucking, I would say, definitely killing them fucking Colts and just absolutely just destroying their offensive line. So I would say player of the week. I would say player of the week for that game, for those guys, player of the game. I would say definitely K. Mitchell for the Ravens. I mean, the offensive line was just working so well together, but K. Mitchell was really, cashing in. There's so many running backs and there's so many quarterbacks that might, not cash in when their offensive line is at their best, but K. Mitchell was cashing in, getting those first downs, getting those touchdowns, really, setting the goddamn standard, really going fucking insane. So I really do enjoy overall what K. Mitchell did. The offensive side was really good. The defensive side was really good. If I was going to rate, their overall performance out of 10, it would easily be a 7 out of 10. I think the way they played was great. It wasn't anything crazy. There was still some flags, of course, but I would say overall, the Ravens just absolutely fucking cooked. So I really do like what the Ravens did. It's just one of those things where I really like what they did. They could, keep going with this on the preseason, and I hope they keep this intensity on the preseason. It'll just make preseason games of watching the Ravens even better. When their defense is really going at the line, when their offense is really, cooking and doing exploding ass plays like this, it's just beautiful to see, guys. So I really like what the Ravens did, and now let's get into the Colts, because I actually do have a lot of thoughts about the Colts, and a lot of disappointing thoughts about the Colts. The Colts is such an interesting team, because sometimes, they might go off, with a run. They might have a beginning season run in the regular season. Then, maybe they'll do something, later down the line. But the Colts always get their ass beat. I just feel like the Colts teams overall just, they just shit themselves. They always do. And this is one of those examples today where they just kind of shit themselves. So let's get into talking about the Colts, the offensive side and the defensive side, guys, right now. But before we get into that, guys, we will have to take a break. I will get into the offensive side, the defensive side, and then we will get into another game that I really enjoyed that I really want to talk about. So we'll talk about that next after the break. Now, the score is really disappointing to see. It's 16-24, and why is it 16-24? Well, because let's talk about the Colts. The offensive side of the ball from the Colts was really disappointing. Only one touchdown, and it was kind of just field goals, and that was just kind of it. There was nothing else, and, there was no real intensity from the Colts, too. They were just picking simple-ass run plays. They weren't really trying to, get these first downs. And I just felt like every time, these guys tried to attempt a throw, they're holding onto the ball way too long. The Ravens come in and just absolutely fuck them up, just absolutely tackle their fucking ass. And then you got Anthony Richardson here just fucking, flying a goddamn around, just running around, trying his best, But that's going to bring up to my first issue, is the quarterback. What the hell were we doing on this game? It just kind of felt like we were just, we put a couple players on and we just said, go out there and go, throw that damn ball, go throw that rock. Well, the problem is, they were barely throwing that goddamn rock. And there was some passes from Anthony Richardson, but they were just deep balls. And guess what the problem is when you just do deep balls? Well, there's no short passes. Or if these short passes are, converting into sacks, well, guess what's going to fucking happen? You're going to have problems where you're just getting field goals. You're not able to convert. You're not able to make touchdowns because Anthony Richardson can't even, really even sling the rock. So that's really disappointing to see, in my opinion. The way the offensive line was just kind of letting the Ravens really do whatever they want, kind of letting that defense just, get in there and just sack the fucking quarterback just kind of over and over and over again. It just was just like, god damn. I really wish they would just do so much better. And also, too, guys, I really, hate the fact that, they tried to mix it up, but I feel like it was just too late. You already tried to get the running game going, but the running plays are so simple, so easy to read that the defense is just, on your ass the whole entire time. And, there was only like one drive where the Colts actually moved the ball. The other times, they just move it. They move it a little bit, and then they get a field goal. They move it a little bit, they get a field goal. They move it a little bit, they get a field goal. And that starts to add up. And, you start to do all these different punts. You start to do all this different stuff. And it's just kind of like, what are we goddamn doing? I'm really disappointed with the Colts offensive side. The quarterback was not hitting. The running back was not hitting. And once you actually take off Anthony Richardson and you actually let the other quarterback go, there was some scrambling. I like the scrambling what the Colts were doing. But, that was kind of it. It was just scrambling. There was nothing else. It's just like, holy shit, what are we doing here? So, that's definitely a disappointing factor. But I would say nothing is more disappointing than the defensive side of the ball. Holy shit. These Colts, this defensive side of the ball was just letting the Colts not the Colts. I wish it was the Colts. It was more like the Ravens. They were just letting the Ravens do whatever they want. If it was a run, if it was a throw, if it was a deep ball, if it was a boot pass, if it was a play action pass, they were just letting them do whatever they want. The intensity wasn't there. The defensive line wasn't even getting to the ball. These guys weren't even wrapping up half the time with the fucking Ravens' offense. It was just embarrassing to goddamn see. So the defensive side was not that good, and the offensive side was nothing to write home about. Anthony Richardson was already out the goddamn game that quick. So I'll say this, guys. My overall ranking, my overall score of how the Colts did in this game, it was just so disappointing that I just easily have to give these guys like a 4 out of 10. Holy shit. That was just laughable to look at. And honestly, too, I want to go into, what could we do to maybe help out, the Colts' second or third string teams. I would say, first of all, I really wish the defense would just be more at the line, get at the line, actually tackle, these fucking players, don't let the running back just stiff arm these players all the goddamn time, really, wrap these players up. And then also, too, maybe some short passes can really help, Some shorter passes, not trying to always do these different deep balls. I will admit, some of these deep balls did hit. Some of these deep balls really did do their thing on here. But when you're doing deep balls the whole entire time, when you're just throwing the ball so fucking deep, it's just like, well, if it goes wrong, then you have to do another deep ball. Or you have to, do a run or another pass. And then, what if they stop the run? And then, well, you might as well just fucking punt the ball at that point. It's just so disappointing. I really wish you could maybe mix up the run. maybe mix up the pass, then maybe mix in that deep pass, just really just try to keep that defense, really just keep guessing. And it felt like the Ravens defense never needed to guess. They always knew what the Colts were doing, and you could easily fucking see that. So that's definitely disappointing, guys. Now, my favorite moments of the game, I will say my favorite moments of the game is definitely when Cade Mitchell just absolutely, just smacked in for that touchdown. There was a play where, the offense, they do such a great job of blocking all the holes from the Colts defense, and you see Cade Mitchell just easily running up there. But what I thought was going to happen was he was going to run up there and he was going to get tackled. And I really like how he does that quick little switch. He does that quick little, maneuver to really, make that touchdown, to switch left and then just go in straight for the touchdown. It was just so great to see the power, the punch that he was able to do that. One of my easily favorite moments of the game. And then one of my other favorite moments was when Anthony Richardson hit that deep pass. I saw that deep pass and I was like, ooh, maybe Anthony Richardson could cook. And then the next play came and he easily got sacked. So that's definitely something. And, how was I feeling about the broadcast quality of this game? Well, the broadcast quality of this game, I would say, was pretty decent. I really like how the commentary was actually really good. Only a couple of mess-ups, it wasn't like, the game at night, or wasn't the game, at 6:30. I would say the 6:30 game, too, was pretty good, too. But I really do enjoy the commentary quality of this game. It felt like a really nice, real game. So that was a really cool thing. But I would say overall, for this first game right here, Colts and Ravens, nothing to really write home about for two teams. The only thing I would say, if you want to watch Cade Mitchell just absolutely run through this Colts, defense. So that's definitely something to see, guys. And I really do think that the Colts need to do a lot more better. They need to really figure out who are they really going to be picking. And that's why they got the preseason to figure it out. And hopefully they can maybe get a win on this preseason before, the regular season starts. But, it's whatever. So, overall, guys, I really do enjoy what the Ravens did here. The Ravens did great. Now, let's move on now and let's talk about the next team, guys, because we do got another team. And we got one of my favorite games today. One of the most exciting games I'm definitely here to talk about here. We got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Philadelphia Eagles, guys. This game right here was just, wow. I mean, fantastic to goddamn watch. It felt like a real game because I'll get into it, with the performance of all these players. But it felt like every player was really taking this game definitely very seriously. So we're going to get into that right after this break. Now, guys, with this game, the Bengals were actually going to be starting their starters in the first quarter. So that was a really cool thing to see. The only thing you would say is that you're worried about them getting injured or etc. But other than that, if you really want to prove yourself and prove to the fans that you're still there, you're still really going, that's a cool thing to see. So the Bengals are already starting out. Joe Burrow already coming out here and absolutely slinging the goddamn rock. I mean, holy shit. He made already 2 touchdown passes. It was just fantastic to see. I do like the start. I really do wish, though, that, the rest of the Bengals' energy would have kept it up. I really wish the offensive line would have protected, Joe Burrow a lot more, too. There was a moment where, they were able to get in and get Joe Burrow before, the first quarter was over from a sack. So that was disappointing to see. But overall, I would say I do like what Joe Burrow did, the way this man was just slinging the goddamn rock. He was also doing these quick passes, too, easily getting these, these half yards, getting these, 5 or 6 yard passes, and then easily able to convert a first down with easily running the ball. It was just really good to see. I really like what they did here, in my opinion. And then, once Joe Burrow got off the field, the starters got off. That's when, the Bengals definitely went downhill. The backup quarterback, he couldn't really do anything. He was just getting, sacked by the defense or really taken down. Or the running game just couldn't really, get out there because the Eagles, just were, absolutely going insane. Now, let's get over this game, guys. Let's just go over it. Now, I would say the best players of this game today was definitely Joe Burrow. And I would say definitely is the backup quarterback, which was going to be Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee was absolutely going crazy on this game. Really, took the Eagles team today and really said, this is my team, and I'm going to prove it today, and I'm going to take these guys to a victory. And it was just beautiful to see. So these two players just absolutely slinging the goddamn rock was great. And I even said on my predictions of the schedule, I even said the Eagles' second or third string team as basically a whole-ass another good football team. And that's why I said what I said, because, it showed out already with the first drive of these guys. So let's get into the Bengals, though, starting off with them, the offensive side performance. I would say, offensive side for first quarter was really good. Joe Burrow came in with the intensity, with the high, deep balls, and also with the shorter passes, these 5-yard chunks, easily getting these touchdowns. It was just fantastic to see. They were already up by 14 in the first quarter, so that was great to see. But I will say, I really like the offensive side in the first quarter, and then the backups all came, and that's when, they weren't playing the same intensity. They couldn't really sling the rock anymore like Joe Burrow can. So it was a little disappointing on that side of the ball. But, the defensive side is the big disappointment here. The big disappointment with the defensive with the Bengals is that, the Bengals' defensive line is just so bad. The way these guys can't get through the offensive line from the Eagles, the way that these guys can't wrap up any of the players, it was just so disappointing to see. They were easily sacking the quarterback. They were easily stopping the run game. I mean, holy goddamn shit. It was just so disappointing to see that happen. And then, I really look at it like, I really wish the defensive side was a lot better, and I think the intensity of the defensive side from the Bengals needs to be a whole lot better for the next preseason game they do, because that was just abysmal. So, yeah, a little disappointed there. But let's move on now to the Eagles side of the ball. Offensively from the Eagles, I mean, just absolutely beautiful. The offensive line, the way they were able to, keep the defense at bay. And then you got Tanner McKee, which was just a great quarterback. This man was able to sling the rock. He did some deep passes. He did some 5-yard chunk passes. They even did the tush and push, which was just so great to see too. They did it even perfectly. It was awesome. They even got it for a touchdown, which was just great. So I like that too. And then the running back too. The running game was just great. The offensive line was just great from the Eagles. When I say this, guys, I think the Eagles' backups alone are just a great second, football team. And it really showed today. And then you got the defensive side. The defensive side of the ball from the Eagles, it was just fantastic. They were just sacking the quarterback. They were stopping the run game. They were easily making them punt the ball. I mean, that's how they easily got up to like 30 fucking points that quickly. So, I mean, the overall score, guys, being 27-34, I mean, you get a touchdown, from Joe Burrow. And then you get a touchdown from, Tanner McKee. And then you get another touchdown from Joe Burrow. And then you get another field goal. You get some punts, of course. And then you get another touchdown from Tanner McKee. Another touchdown from Tanner McKee. And then you just end it off with a field goal, guys. And they also did another goddamn touchdown. They did a touchdown, they did a touchdown around the fourth quarter. So, they even did a touchdown around the fourth quarter to even end the game off. So, I really like what the Eagles did today. And I would say, if we're rating the Bengals side of the ball, I would say, 5 out of 10. And that 5 out of 10 is just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase just, going absolutely fucking insane on the Eagles. And then I would say, 5 out of 10 because the defensive side wasn't that good. But for the Eagles, I would easily give it a 6. I think Tanner McKee was pretty good. I think the running game was pretty good. I think the offensive line was absolutely fantastic. I like what they did. The intensity was definitely there. They easily get a 6 out of 10. And, hey, I would say for a good start for a preseason game, this is one of the best preseason games to watch. It was high scoring intensity. Players were just absolutely going insane. The Bengals definitely gave up after a while, but hey, the Eagles went crazy. So I really did enjoy this game. Now let's move on to the final game of the night, guys, which was the Raiders versus the Seahawks. Pete Carroll versus, Mike McConnell. So let's get into it, guys, right after the break. The final game of the night, guys, we had the Seahawks going against the Raiders, and it was just so great to see these two teams. And, having, Ashton Genty, having, Geno Smith coming on for the Raiders, you're wondering, how are they going to do? And, they did pretty terrible. You had third stringers, you had second and third stringers from the Seahawks, and they absolutely fucking killed Ashton Genty. They killed fucking, Geno Smith. Geno Smith already threw intercept. It was already throwing interceptions already in this game. Flags were going fucking everywhere. This was a classic Raiders versus another team type game. And even on preseason, guys, Raiders still act like the goddamn Raiders. And, I mean, it was just embarrassing to see Geno Smith already, come out there and throw an interception. Ashton Genty not even able to, even run the goddamn ball. They immediately had to get their backups already going because they were, their starters were already going to get goddamn killed. So that was definitely something to see. But I would say the backups, they evened out. The quarterbacks and the running back, they were actually really good. They had some really great, they had some good drives where they were moving the ball and getting field goals, but they weren't having good drives and getting touchdowns, and that's the difference here. The Seahawks were having great drives and getting touchdowns, and they also had one of the last year's Alabama quarterbacks. They had Dylan Moore on here, and Dylan Moore was just, absolutely insane. The way this man was just moving around. This man was like a Lamar Jackson. The way this guy can just fucking, be backed up on, on their, 10th spot. Backed up to their fucking, basically their goddamn, to their, backed up to, the 10-yard line. And then he just easily runs for a goddamn first down. It was just so great to see, in my opinion. And, honestly, overall, guys, I was really thinking, for the first quarter, the second quarter, it was 3 to already, 20 to, 20. So I was like, okay, the Raiders are already about to fucking lose. And then, the third quarter comes on, and that's where Pete Carroll's magic starts working. All these field goals start working out. They slowly get up there. They slowly start moving the ball. They start moving the rock. But they don't move the rock, that much. They get a touchdown. They get their first touchdown in the third quarter. And then it's immediately back to field goals. And then, you're thinking, okay, the Seahawks are going to get a chance to win this game. And as, preseason games, once the game's tied up, if the game ends, it's just a tied game. It's a preseason game. So, you really have to move your fucking ass to win if you want to win the game. And, the Seahawks' final drive to win was not a winning drive. I mean, the Raiders just absolutely fucked them over, absolutely killed them. And then you're like, okay, the Raiders might actually win. Pete Carroll might actually get a win. And then Pete Carroll, completely fumbles. The Raiders completely fumbled their final drive. And then the game just ends as a tie because the field goal, he did a 56 field goal. They did a 56 field goal, the Raiders did. And then they line up for a 55 one, and then they miss it. They don't even, they don't even fucking touch the pole. So, yeah, guys, I would say for the offensive side of the Raiders, I really liked what they were doing at third quarter. But the first, the second quarter, and even the third quarter, I mean, if you only get one touchdown, you're just getting field goals for the rest of the game. I mean, you're not going to win football games. So, I mean, that's easily going to be like a 4 out of 10 performance. And then the defensive side, I would give it a 5 because they were able to tie it up. They were able to stop for a tie. But the offensive side of the Seahawks is going to get like a fucking 6 because they went absolutely insane. easily running the ball, easily getting first downs, easily getting touchdowns. The way the offensive line was just getting easy on those holes. I mean, it was just beautiful to see, guys. So, guys, week 1 of preseason was just beautiful to see. You know, it tied up to 23-23. And for the final game to end the night, I would say for a final tie, I would say that's pretty nice. You know, you don't get too many ties in the preseason, but once you get a tie in the preseason, I mean, it's pretty fun to see. So, guys, how are you feeling about week 1 of preseason? This is just the kickoff. You know, I was thinking, you know, should I, yap my ass off for like an hour or two? No, I'll wait for Saturday to do that. I'll wait till, I'll wait till Friday to do that. I'll wait till Saturday to do that, when there's like fucking, 6 games that, are on like, Saturday. So, I'll wait for that, guys. But how are you feeling about week 1 of the preseason? I'm really enjoying it, guys. My favorite game for so far is definitely going to be the Bengals and the Eagles. The way that game was just beautiful to watch. The Raiders and the Seahawks, and then the Colts and Ravens game. It was just kind of, it was just kind of okay throughout the whole entire game. But I really like that 6:30 slot game. I hope Friday and I hope Saturday can keep bringing great preseason action, guys. That's been Let's Talk Sports, guys. Let me know. My Pandora people, if you're on, Pandora, make sure you follow. If you're on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast at, make sure you follow, turn on notifications, guys, because we're dropping NFL content all season, all preseason. I mean, get ready for Friday night, guys. I'll be having another recap covering those 3 games. And then Saturday, I'm going to be recapping all the other games on Saturday, so make sure you check that out. Guys, thank you so much for listening. It's been so fun. I'll see y'all later. You have a good one. Bye.